So as you all probably know, I do a lot of Next.js stuff on my YouTube, but I decided to branch out a little bit and try Solid and SolidStart. And I also want to play around with a language called Civet. I made a video on it like yesterday, but it's kind of like a coffee script, but it has like TypeScript type safety on it. So I don't know. I think it'll make the code a little bit more concise and cleaner and easier to read. I'm getting kind of tired of reading JavaScript and all the curly braces and all the keywords. I just want to write code and like not have to worry about all this stuff. So I figure, what's the best way to like learn a new language and also learn a new like framework? Figured, hey, let's just make a to-do list. So let's just go ahead and try to build out a to-do list and try to learn more about SolidJS and SolidStart. So I think the routes for SolidStart are kind of like identical to Next. Nothing too extravagant there. And then typically you split those, your components into a components folder. And this stuff is just like boilerplate from what I can tell. And in terms of the Civet code, you can actually leave off the ending braces for your DOM elements, and this is still valid. Like if you wanted to put them there, you can, that's fine. But it's kind of a shorthand to like leave them off. And everything that's indented is going to be basically nested as a child of this component. So it's pretty cool. I don't know, it might be kind of weird. It might be more error prone. I don't know. I'm going to play around with it. We're going to see. So to make a to-do list, typically what you need to do is you need to have an array that keeps track of all your to-dos, right? So in Civet, you can declare constants by doing this : equals. So if I were to do like to-dos and set to-dos, I can say create signal, which comes from solid. And once you have a signal, I can go ahead and like declare this as a empty array. It's very similar to like a React use state, although it's a signal, and under the hood it does stuff a little bit different in terms of performance. And we need to basically loop over all the to-dos and print them out to the screen. Okay, so the way to do a for loop, at least the way Solid recommends, is you use this for keyword, or it's a for component, I guess. And you can go ahead and say each, and I'm going to go ahead and pass the to-dos. Now, the main difference that I see with signals is that you have to like invoke the signal with parentheses to get the value from it. So that's kind of new and different. And inside of the for, we actually need to pass a callback function as the child or the children. Okay, so in this case, we're going to say for every to-do, we can return some type of JSX. So we'll do this, and we're going to go ahead and just like return a li that has a to-do in it, like this. Let's just go ahead and wrap this whole thing in a UL like that. And again, you don't need the closing li, so let's just not put that. Now let's see if this works. If I were to go ahead and put like hello and then another line says world here, let's see if this prints out. We got hello world, pretty cool. So now what we want to do is let's add a form so we can add to-dos. So underneath the UL, I'll say form, and I'm going to go ahead and add like a label that's going to say like task. And then underneath the label, I will say input. We can get this inputted in ID. I think there's actually a shorthand for doing IDs here. You could say like task, and this could be a HTML4. Actually, I think you can just say for. I could do like task. All right. So now we should have an input and a task. Okay, looks pretty good. Probably also want a button that says like create. Okay. Now, how do we make it so when this form is submitted, we're going to basically add a to-do to this signal array? It's kind of similar to React. I mean, you say on submit, and then you can say like handle submit. We have to go up here and create a function. So I'll just go ahead and make one like this. And I believe it's an event in Solid instead of like the React.form event. It's just event. And we can just go ahead and say e.prevent default, I believe. And what we also want to do is let's just go ahead and add a new to-do to this array of to-dos. How do you do that? Well, it's very similar to React. You call the method set to-dos. You pass it a new array using the old signal value. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put the value of the text. In this case, I'll just say like GG, because we don't actually have the input listened to yet. So let's do this. Let's click it a couple times and it should just append GG to the to-do list. Seems pretty good. On the input itself though, we want to listen to when the user types and store that somewhere. So how do you do that? You can go ahead and say text and set text. That's going to be a constant. And that's going to be equal to another signal. It's going to be defaulted to an empty string starting off. And what we want to do is when the user types into this input, I can go ahead and say like on input, I believe. And we are just going to go ahead and get the event like this. Well, I think it's already going to be an event. We don't have to type it, right? But we're going to go ahead and say set text, and that's e dot current target dot value, I think. Maybe it's just target. Let's see. I think if you type this, I'm going to put this on a new line so it's a little bit easier to read. So what are we doing wrong here? We're setting the text as the user types. Okay, there we go. That seems like it's working. So let's make sure that this works. I'm gonna go ahead and just like render out the text here using my signal. And let's see if this prints out. It does. Okay. So let's use the text. Instead of GG here, let's just use the text and basically call the signal getter with parentheses. There we go. And that should hopefully type in. I'll just go ahead and click that. That should put it into the list. Okay, we're making some progress. Now we also want to clear out the text here. So I'm going to say set text. And then I'll just go ahead and clear it out. So now as I add signals, actually this is not working. What do we do wrong? After we append the text, we should be clearing the text. We are. Okay, on the input itself, this is where we probably need to say a value is equal to text so that it can update dynamically when we clear it programmatically. Okay, let's try this. Type in like A, create, C, create. Cool. Now, what else do we need for it to do? I mean, this looks bad in terms of styling. We probably want the ability to delete to-dos. So we could probably add like a little, an X when you click it, it deletes it. So let's go here where we're rendering out these to-dos. And we're going to go ahead and just add a X, which could be potentially a button. I'll just go ahead and say like button and then say X. And now we should have buttons show up for these things. You can also put these on new lines if this makes it a little bit easier to read. So when you click on this button, we want to basically delete, I'll say handle delete. But we probably want to keep track of which one we clicked, right? So let's think about this. We could just call a method here and we can pass in the to do. One thing that you actually don't need to do in Civet is you don't need to pass parentheses when you're calling methods. A little weird. So for example, when I say set text, I don't need to pass parentheses. When I say set signal, I don't need to do this. So I could kind of, I don't know if it's cleaner. You might say this is awful, but I think when you get used to it, it's pretty easy to read the code. Okay, like I can add an on click here with these parentheses. All right, so handle delete. What does this need to do? Well, it probably needs to somehow take into the to do like that. And we need to loop over the to-dos and splice out the one or filter out the one that matches by reference. I think this will all be by reference still, I hope. So let's just try doing that. I'm going to say set to-dos, and we're going to get the current value of the to-dos, and we're going to filter down and say, give me the to-do P that is not equal to to-do. Okay, and again, we don't need to pass parentheses here. Go ahead and pass that as a string. Cannot find T of TypeScript. Okay, I think I do need parentheses here. Okay, so filter out the ones that do not match this. So let's make sure this works. If I were to click on this one, does it delete it? It does. Now the only issue with what I just did, like if I have a bunch of to-dos that are the same text, I believe it's going to delete all of them. Might not be exactly what we want. Maybe we should actually do it by index. I know people say you shouldn't be doing stuff by index, but it looks like React or Solid doesn't care about adding keys to stuff. Maybe it does. Let's go to the SolidJS docs. I don't know if they care about adding keys. Because it doesn't look like they add keys to the things that they render out. So you might be able to just use the index here, honestly. So let's just go back to here. I'm going to say index. And we're actually going to delete by the index. I think you have to pass that with parentheses. I'll call this the number. It'll be the to-do index. And I want to go ahead and get rid of the one by the index. So I is not equal to index. In fact, I'll just call this like index. Filter out the ones that are not equal. Okay, let's do that. All right, so if I click on, if I have like a bunch of T's and I delete one, it does delete by index. Pretty cool. So one thing I want to do is I'm going to go to the Civet.js docs real quick and see if there's any like, that's not it. This is it. Civet.dev. Let's go to this cheat sheet. Let's go to arrays and let's see if there's a way to like filter. Or if there's like some shorthand, because I did find a cool shorthand for like picking stuff, like use like the ampersand. You can pick things from the, using like the map, but I haven't really looked through all of these to see like what other cool array related features you have. Yeah, I don't think I have anything that can do that a little bit cleaner that I know of. Anyway, that's good enough, right? So that looks pretty good. I mean, maybe we can kind of play around with styling this a little bit, like just add some space between these things. So if we were to go ahead and add a class to the li, I'll call it like a class of to-do. And I think this is using potentially, you could use CSS modules. So I can go ahead and say like import styles from, say styles index module.css. I haven't really tried this. I'm kind of doing this to see what happens. I'll say styles, and then I will say index module CSS. So the idea is I want to style this page where I could potentially give this entire page a style. So like if I were to do class is equal to styles.main. Let's see if this works. I'm gonna go ahead and say like main here. And then we are gonna go ahead and inside of main, actually I'm gonna say main and then I'm gonna say to do. I wanna say text of color red. I wanna see what happens if I do this. Does it actually make it red? I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like, is there a way to do a top level style? Like I could just apply a style to main and then that's gonna allow me to like, you know, style the things that live in main. Doesn't seem like that's working. So maybe you can actually do that with CSS modules. Okay, well, if you're watching this and you know, let me know. But if there's no way to do that, then yeah, I'm not a big fan of CSS modules, to be honest. If you can't like apply a style to a main parent component. So we got this stuff styled red. It looks good. I just wanted to basically add a display of flex here, and I wanted to say gap of 10 pixels like that. Okay, we got some gap here. Obviously it's all the way to the left, so we should probably, if we can say justify content is center. I guess we could potentially try to add like the edit ability. So if these were actually inputs, instead of just text here, like instead of just displaying to do, we could potentially have this be an input and we could have it change the existing text when you type into it and just make it look like it's not something that you can like just make it look normal. I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to say value is equal to do. Okay. But then we're going to say on change. I guess we can say on input. And we want to update the current like index that we're at, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and say handle update to do. Let's just pass this an index like this. And go ahead and do that. handle update to do. Let's see if this works. I'm gonna go make a function here, and I'm gonna go ahead and say like index, which is a number. And we are going to have this be a factory function that returns a new value. So I'll say E and E dot. Actually, I won't say E. I'll say new value is a string. And so when you call this, this is actually going to, I'll get back an E here, and we're going to call this handle update to do. And then we're going to go ahead and call this thing again with e.target.value or current target, whatever. Okay, so this is a factory function, and we're going to basically call it with the index. You know, I'm making this too confusing. Sometimes I do that, like, you know, you do like a factory function because you want to be cute, and it's like, okay, let's just not do that. Let's just do this, and we can go ahead and just call this method with the index and the current value, and then we're done. Like that should work fine, I think. New value, handle to do. Okay, what am I doing wrong here? I'm missing a comma. That's what I'm doing wrong. Okay, anyway, so when you type into this thing, I want to basically set the to-dos. And I'm going to take the current to-dos. I want to map over them. And then for every to-do that we have, I'll say like to-do and then index to be I. We want to go ahead and update if it is equal. So I'm going to say if I is equal to index, we're going to go ahead and return new value. Otherwise, we're going to return the old value like this. This is a cool thing you can do in Civet, where instead of doing like ternaries, you can actually do like if statements like this, and they have implicit return. So the last line of the if statement is going to return, and that's going to be the value that's used in your map. Okay, so let's see if this actually works. I'll go ahead and just type here. It does kind of break a little bit. I think it's because I'm doing value of to do, and I'm not calling this with parentheses. So make sure, since we're using signals, make sure you actually, well, I guess you don't need to call that with parentheses. So why is this like unselecting it? Like as I type, it unselects the input. It's not really what we want. Handle update to do, index, new value. Yeah, maybe this is not the way we want to do it. Let's see. Is there a way to do this in Solid? Map array, reactive map helper that caches each item. Solid JS update value in an array. I would assume it's like the same approach. Why would this unfocus it? So weird. I think Solid's probably like re-rendering the entire component or something, and that's causing it to like lose its focus. Solid JS map over input losing focus. Hi, I'm a newbie. I have an array like object to-do list. I render them as a list of inputs. The 4-component keys items of input array by reference. When you are updating a to-do item inside the to-do with the replace, you are creating a brand new object. Solid then treats the new object as completely unrelated items. This creates a fresh HTML element for it. You can use create store instead and only update the single property of your to-do object without changing its reference. Or use an alternative control flow component for mapping the input array that takes an explicit key property. Okay, so I guess we do want to do something like this. Instead of a for, we can say a key. Okay, let's just try that out. So let's bring in key, and then let's go to where we're doing the for here. I'll say key, and then I think it says you need to do by guess we could do by ID, but we don't have IDs on our to-do, so that's going to kind of mess up the entire thing that we're working on here. Has no exported member key. Uh-oh. let's go over here. I'm gonna go to, is there a key? Yeah, let's go back to 4. You know, maybe using this is probably old. Let's keep reading. Maybe there's someone else who. Someone says use it by index. Is index even here? Non-keyed list iteration, rendering nodes that are keyed by array should. This is useful when there is no conceptual key. Yeah, so I think this is actually what we want. We want to use index. I think key might have been something old. So instead of doing a 4 here, I'll do key. Then I'll get rid of this. Yeah, let's give this a try, and let me go ahead and restart Civet. This thing, I need to actually type it now because it's complaining. Yeah, let's see what else we need to do here. Interesting. So now, like when you use this thing, you can't pass it. Okay, what am I doing wrong here? State.list. For each state.list index, each to-dos.list, the item I mean, this thing needs to be that. There's no index anymore. I don't know if there's a way to get the index. This is kind of confusing, I won't lie. Second is the index number. So you can still get the index here. But the index doesn't need to be a signal. And why is this thing still complaining? Is it because I didn't call it like that? Okay. I'm just a noob at Solid, so maybe there's some stuff that I'm getting confused on. Let's see if this actually works. So now, like, the idea is I type in something. Can I change this? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that's a little bit confusing. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan that you have to use an index thing versus the 4. And then there's something called stores that I don't really understand, so I'll have to kind of read up on that. But anyway, I think that's good enough for this video. I mean, I made a little to-do list application. It took me 30 minutes. You can go and add to-dos. You can delete to-dos. You can modify them. Overall, I mean, Solid seems good. SolidStart seems good. I'm not familiar with it, so there's some stuff that I'm trying to wrap my head around. But I think once I start using it more, like, it'll be better. I still like Civet. Like, I like this a lot, the syntax. Some people will probably see the syntax and be like, I don't know what's going on here because I need my parentheses to understand. I think it looks pretty good. I think there's some situations where it makes it very hard to read, like in this case. Like, okay, we're calling a set to-dos function, and then we call another function called filter. Like, yeah, maybe I ought to have some parentheses at some point to make it easier to read. But this, for example, makes it okay. Like, this is good. Set to-dos, map over to to-dos. Then for every single one, we just do that. Anyway, I got a Discord channel if you want to join to find a place to talk to some other developers or talk to me directly and ask me questions. And I have a newsletter where I plan to hopefully publish a full stack SaaS course where I connect to Stripe, connect to like S3 buckets, generate some images using AI. So if you're interested in getting that notification when I publish that course, be sure to subscribe to my newsletter. Otherwise, have a good day and happy coding.